Opening scene. The Galactic Council chambers fell silent as the emergency beacon activated. Representatives from 47 species watched their screens in horror. The Devourers had returned, an ancient machine race that consumed entire star systems. They had been dormant for 10,000 years. But now they were awake and moving through the outer rim. Introduction of the threat. The council leader, an elderly being named Talon from the peaceful Meridian species, addressed the assembly. The Devourers had already destroyed 3 colonies. Millions were dead. Their machines couldn't be stopped by conventional weapons. Every species that had tried to fight them was wiped out. The Forbidden Zone. The conversation turned to humanity. 50 years ago, the Council had declared Earth's solar system off limits. Humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable. They fought among themselves constantly. Their weapons were horrifying. They had something called nuclear bombs that could destroy entire planets. The Council had placed warning beacons around human space. Stay away from the violent species. The debate begins. A young representative named Kira from the warrior species argued they had no choice. The Devourers were coming. They needed every weapon, every warrior, every advantage. Maybe humanity's violence was exactly what they needed. Others disagreed strongly. Humans were barely spacefaring. They had only just developed faster-than-light travel. Their ships were crude. Their technology was primitive compared to Council standards. What could they possibly offer? The decision after hours of debate. Desperation won. Talon authorized first contact. They would send a small diplomatic ship to Earth. The mission was simple. Explain the threat and ask for help. If humans refused or proved hostile, they would retreat and never return. Journey to Earth. The diplomatic vessel traveled through space toward the small blue planet. Commander Narration, a decorated officer from the scientific Avalon species, led the mission. He studied human broadcasts during the journey. What he saw disturbed him. Endless wars, violence and entertainment, weapons everywhere. These beings celebrated conflict. But he also noticed something else. Humans ran toward danger to save others. They sacrificed themselves for strangers. They had something called firefighters who rushed into burning buildings. They had doctors who traveled to war zones to heal the wounded. They were contradictions. Arrival at Earth. The ship entered Earth's atmosphere above a place called Geneva. The humans had already detected them. Fighter jets surrounded the vessel. Narration broadcast on all frequencies. We come in peace. We need to speak with your leaders. First contact within hours. Representatives from Earth's major nations gathered. Narration stood before them in the assembly hall. He explained everything. The Galactic Council, the 47 species, the Devourers, the threat to all life in the galaxy. The humans listened quietly. Then a leader from a nation called India asked, "Why come to us? You said you've kept away from Earth for 50 years. Narration answered honestly, "Because we're losing. Because we're desperate. Because you're the only species in the galaxy that might be crazy enough to fight something that cannot be beaten." Humanity's response. The human leaders asked for time to discuss. Narration expected refusal. Why would they help aliens who had ignored them? Who had labeled them too dangerous? Who had kept them isolated? After 2 hours, they returned. A leader from a nation called Brazil spoke. "You've watched us. You've seen our wars, our weapons, our violence. But did you see what comes after? We rebuild. We forgive. We help former enemies. You isolated us because we're dangerous. Maybe, but we're also the species that sends rescue teams into disasters. That shares medicine with those who can't afford it. That reaches out to strangers." Another leader from China added, "We'll help you. Not because you deserve it, but because innocent people are dying. That's what humans do. We help. The condition, But there was one requirement. Humans wouldn't just be soldiers. They wanted full membership in the Galactic Council. They wanted access to all technology, all knowledge, all trade. They would fight as equals, or not at all. Narration had no authority to agree. But he did anyway. Done. Closing as the diplomatic ship prepared to leave with human representatives aboard, Narration realized something. The galaxy had feared humanity's capacity for violence. But violence wasn't what would save them, not. It was humanity's stubborn refusal to let innocent people die, even strangers they'd never met, even aliens who'd shunned them. The real war was about to begin. Asterisk. The Council's shock. The diplomatic ship returned to Council headquarters with 12 human representatives. The Council chamber erupted in chaos when Narration announced he'd granted humans full membership. Talon stood from his seat, his face showing disbelief. You had no authority to make such promises. Narration remained calm. Then reject it. Send the humans home. Fight the Devourers alone and watch our civilizations burn. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the truth. They were out of options. A human representative named James stepped forward. He was a military commander from a place called America. We didn't ask to be isolated. We didn't ask to be feared. But now you need us, and we're here. We'll honor our agreement whether you honor yours or not. The vote was close, but humanity gained provisional membership. They would prove themselves in battle, or the agreement would end. Sharing intelligence, the Council opened their archives to human scientists. Data about the Devourers filled human computers 10,000 years of history, battle reports, failed strategies. Every species that fought them had died. The Devourers were machines, but not simple robots. They learned. They adapted. They consumed matter and energy, growing stronger with each system they destroyed. Their ships regenerated damage. Their weapons evolved to counter any defense. A human scientist named Maria studied the reports for 3 days without sleeping. Then she called an emergency meeting. You've been fighting them wrong, she announced. The Council's military commanders bristled at the insult. They'd fought wars for thousands of years, while humans were still living in caves. Maria didn't apologize. You fight defensively. You evacuate populations and sacrifice territory. You try to minimize casualties. That's noble, but it gives them time to adapt and grow stronger. The human strategy James presented their plan. We hit them everywhere at once. Overwhelming force. No retreat. No defensive positions. We attack until either they're destroyed or we are. A council admiral named Vorin laughed bitterly. That's suicide. We'd lose entire fleets. Yes, James agreed. We would. But we'd hurt them badly. Maybe even stop them. The council representatives looked horrified. Humans were proposing mass casualties as strategy. This confirmed every fear they'd had about the violent species. But Kira, the young warrior representative, understood. They're right. We've been fighting to survive. Humans fight to win. There's a difference. Earth's mobilization back on Earth. Every nation began preparing. Factories that built cars started building weapons. Scientists who studied medicine began studying warfare. The entire planet shifted to war production in weeks. The Council provided some technology-better engines, stronger shields, energy weapons. But humans insisted on keeping their own weapons, too. Railguns that fired metal slugs at impossible speeds. Missiles with nuclear warheads. Chemical explosives. Kinetic weapons. The Council thought these primitive weapons were useless. Their energy shields could stop such simple attacks. A human engineer named David explained, Your shields stop energy weapons perfectly, but they're not designed for solid projectiles moving at high velocity. Our primitive weapons might surprise the Devourers, too. training together human soldiers trained alongside Council warriors. The differences were striking. Council troops were disciplined, efficient, and careful. They followed protocols perfectly. They minimized risks. Human soldiers were chaotic. They improvised constantly. They took insane risks. During one training exercise, a human squad destroyed their own cover to get a better shooting angle. Their commander praised them for thinking outside the box. A council officer named Petra watched in amazement. "You destroyed your only protection." The human sergeant grinned. "Can't hit the enemy hiding behind walls. Sometimes you gotta take chances." The fleet assembles. Within 2 months, the combined fleet gathered at a staging point. 300 council ships, sleek, efficient vessels with advanced technology, and 200 human ships, ugly, blocky craft covered in armor plating and bristling with weapons. One council pilot called human ships flying fortresses. Another called them space junkyards. But everyone admitted they looked intimidating. Final briefing. Talon addressed the combined forces via broadcast. "The Devourers are approaching the Helios system. 10 billion civilians are evacuating, but they need time. We must hold the line. This fleet represents the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history." James added his own message to human forces. 50 years ago, they called us too dangerous for the galaxy. Today, we prove them right. We're dangerous to anyone who threatens innocent lives. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for people we've never met, species we just learned existed. That's what makes us human. Departure. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel. The journey would take 3 days. In 72 hours, they would face an enemy that had never been defeated. The war for the galaxy had begun. Asterisk. Arrival at Helios. The combined fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Helios system. What they saw froze everyone's blood. The Devourers had already reached the 4th planet. Their machines covered the surface like a swarm of insects, stripping away everything: buildings, forests, oceans, even the atmosphere itself. Massive harvester ships floated in orbit, pulling raw materials into their hulls. Smaller drones moved in perfect formations, dismantling the planet piece by piece. The world was dying, and the Devourers were consuming its corpse. Petra, monitoring the sensors, reported in a shaking voice, "The population centers are gone." 12 million civilians didn't make it to the evacuation ships. The council crews fell into stunned silence. They'd seen reports, but witnessing the destruction in real time was different. This wasn't war. This was extermination. Humanity's rage on the human ships, the reaction was different. Not silence, but fury. James listened to the casualty reports, his jaw clenched tight. He opened a channel to all human vessels. 12 million dead. Families, children, people who never hurt anyone. The Devourers don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They just kill and consume. So we're going to teach them something. You don't mess with the living. A human pilot named Tom muttered to his co-pilot, "Council folks are scared. Can't blame them. But fear doesn't help anyone right now." His co-pilot, Lisa, checked their weapons systems. "And it's good we brought anger instead." The Devourer response: the enemy detected the fleet immediately. Their harvester ships stopped working and turned to face the newcomers. Thousands of fighter drones launched from carrier vessels. They moved with mechanical precision, forming attack patterns that had destroyed fleets for millennia. Vorin, commanding the council forces, issued orders. All ships defensive formation Beta 7. Activate shields to maximum. Engage at range. The council ships moved into a careful formation, each vessel positioned to support the others. Their energy weapons charged. ready to fire at distances where the enemy couldn't effectively return fire. The human fleet did. Something different. The human charge James gave a single order. All ships full speed. Ram them if you have to. 200 human vessels accelerated straight toward the enemy swarm. No formation. No careful positioning. Just raw aggression. Vorin watched in horror. What are they doing? They'll be torn apart. Kira understood. They're not trying to survive. They're trying to win. The Devourers had never seen anything like it. Their combat algorithms predicted the humans would slow down, would try to preserve their ships. Instead, the humans accelerated faster, weapons firing continuously. The first strike human railguns opened fire first. Solid metal slugs traveling at tremendous velocity slammed into Devourer drones. The enemy's energy shields, designed to stop lasers and plasma, did nothing against physical projectiles. Drones exploded by the dozens. Then the missile swarms launched. Hundreds of warheads streaked through space. The Devourers shot down many, but couldn't stop them all. Nuclear explosions lit up the darkness. Electromagnetic pulses scrambled enemy systems. A human ship called the Texas lost its shields to enemy fire. The captain, a woman named Ruth, didn't retreat. She aimed her crippled vessel straight at a harvester ship and rammed it at full speed. Both vessels exploded in a massive fireball. Over the radio, her last words were, "For the 12 million." The Council Joings, watching the humans sacrifice themselves, shocked the Council crews into action. These crazy, violent, beautiful humans were dying to buy time for people they'd never met. Talon's voice came over the command channel. "All Council ships, advance. If the humans can be brave, so can we." The sleek Council vessels moved forward, their weapons firing with precision. They targeted damaged enemy ships, finishing what the humans had started. The two fleets began working together, human aggression creating chaos, Council precision exploiting it. Petra found herself yelling encouragement at her crew. "Come on. The humans are showing us how it's done. Fire everything." The Devourers adapt, but the enemy was learning. The Devourer ships began adjusting their shields. They diverted power to physical barriers. They changed their formations to counter the human tactics. A massive command ship emerged from behind the dying planet. It was larger than anything in the combined fleet, 3 kilometers long, covered in weapons and armor. Energy readings showed it was powering up something devastating. Maria, monitoring from a human science vessel, ran the calculations. Her face went pale. That's a planet-killer weapon. If it fires at the evacuation convoy, 10 billion refugees were fleeing through the outer system. They were defenseless. If that weapon fired, they would all die. The impossible choice. James made a decision. All human ships, new target. We take down that command ship. Vorin protested. It's suicide. That vessel has more firepower than our entire fleet. I know, James replied calmly. But those refugees need to survive. Someone has to stop that ship. He switched to the human fleet channel. This is it. This is why we came. Not for glory. Not for ourselves. For them. Every human ship turned toward the massive enemy vessel. They knew they wouldn't survive. They attacked anyway. Asterisk. The suicide-run 200 human ships charged toward the massive Devourer command vessel. The distance closed rapidly. 50 kilometers. 40. 30. The command ship's weapons activated, sending streams of deadly energy across space. The first human ship exploded within seconds. Then another. And another. Explosions lit up the darkness like fireworks, each one representing hundreds of lives lost. But the humans didn't slow down. Tom's fighter shook as enemy fire grazed his hull. Lisa screamed warnings about hull breaches and failing systems. He ignored it all, keeping his trajectory steady. Almost there. Just a little closer. Behind them, the Council fleet watched in absolute horror. These humans were actually doing it, flying straight into certain death without hesitation. The Council's realization Talon stood on his command bridge, hands gripping the railing. Tears ran down his face. For 50 years, they'd called humans dangerous. They'd been right, but not in the way they'd thought. Humans were dangerous because they didn't value their own lives above others. They would die for complete strangers without a second thought. We called them violent, Talon whispered. We called them primitive. But they're the bravest beings in the galaxy. Kira was already moving. All ships, protect the human advance. Give them covering fire. The Council vessels surged forward, their weapons targeting the command ship's defensive turrets. They couldn't save the humans, but they could help them get closer. Breaking through 90 human ships remained. Then 70. Then 50. James's flagship, the Defiance, lost its left engine. Alarms screamed throughout the bridge. His crew reported critical damage to life support, weapons, shields. Everything was failing. Distance to target? James asked calmly. 5 kilometers, his navigator replied. Good enough. James opened the channel to all remaining human ships. This is Commander James. It's been an honor serving with you. Tell Earth we did our duty. Fire everything. Every remaining human vessel unleashed its full arsenal simultaneously. Railguns, missiles, torpedoes. Even their remaining escape pods filled with explosives. Everything launched at once. The command ship's shields flared bright blue, absorbing the incredible barrage. They held for 3 seconds. 4. 5. Then they collapsed. The final strike, without shields, the Devourer command ship was vulnerable. Human missiles struck its hull, tearing through armor plating. Nuclear warheads detonated against its weapon systems. Railgun slugs punched deep holes into its structure. The planet-killer weapon was charging its final sequence. Lights ran along its massive barrel, building to firing power. In seconds, it would release enough energy to vaporize the refugee fleet. James saw only one option left. He turned to his crew. Evacuate. Get to the escape pods now. That's an order. His second officer, a young man named Peter, refused. Sir, there's no time. If we leave, who flies the ship? James met his eyes. I will. Then I'm staying too, Peter said quietly. The rest of the bridge crew nodded agreement. James felt pride swell in his chest. Then let's make it count. He aimed the Defiance directly at the planet-killer weapon and pushed the engines to maximum. The ship screamed in protest, metal groaning, but it accelerated. Impact, the Defiance, struck the command ship's weapon system at full speed. The explosion was massive nuclear reactors detonating, fuel reserves igniting, ammunition cooking off all at once. The blast tore through the command ship's interior. Ripping it apart from within, the planet-killer weapon exploded spectacularly. Its charged energy releasing in an uncontrolled burst that consumed the entire command ship. Metal twisted and melted. Systems failed catastrophically. The massive vessel broke in half, both pieces tumbling through space as secondary explosions continued. The Devourer command ship, the vessel that had destroyed countless worlds, was dead, but so were all 200 human ships. Not a single one survived. Silence, the battlefield fell silent. The remaining Devourer forces, suddenly without their command vessel, stopped their coordinated attacks. They began retreating, their formations breaking apart. The Council fleet didn't pursue. They couldn't. Everyone was staring at the debris field where the human ships had been. 10 billion refugees, watching from their evacuation convoy, saw the explosions. They saw the human ships die. They saw beings they'd never met sacrifice everything to save them. Aftermath Petra sat at her station, tears streaming down her face. Around her, her crew was crying too. They'd served together for years, fought in many battles, but they'd never witnessed anything like this. Voran's voice came over the fleet channel, broken with emotion. The humans, they're all gone. Every ship, every soul. Talon closed his eyes. The cost was unimaginable. 200 ships, 40,000 human lives. Gone in minutes, but the evacuation fleet was safe. 10 billion lives saved. Earth learns back on Earth. News of the battle arrived. The entire planet went silent. Flags lowered to half-mast. Millions gathered in the streets, not in celebration, but in mourning. They'd sent their best warriors to help strangers, and none had returned. A human leader addressed the planet. Today, we learned the true cost of doing what's right. Our people died so that others could live. They died proving that humanity deserves its place among the stars. Not because we're strong, not because we're advanced, but because when innocent lives are threatened, we stand up, even if it kills us. The Council's response in the council chambers. Every representative stood in silence, a gesture of respect reserved for the greatest heroes. For the first time in galactic history, they honored a species that had been members for less than 3 months. Talon spoke quietly. We feared humanity's capacity for violence. We were fools. We should have recognized their capacity for sacrifice. Kira added, they taught us something today. Being dangerous isn't about how much destruction you can cause. It's about how far you'll go to protect others. But the war wasn't over. The Devourers were still out there, still consuming worlds. They'd lost their command ship, but thousands of their vessels remained . And now the galaxy's most fearless warriors were gone. Earth's decision. The message from Earth arrived the next day. When Talon read it, he couldn't believe the words. This is Earth Command. We've received word of our fleet's destruction. We're sending reinforcements. 500 ships. 100,000 personnel. We'll be there in 1 week. Humanity isn't finished. We're just getting started. The galaxy had feared humanity's power. Now they were about to witness something even more terrifying. Humanity's determination when someone they cared about had been hurt. The Devourers had awakened, something they couldn't understand. They'd made humanity angry, and angry humans didn't quit. The week of mourning Earth transformed during that week. Every factory, every shipyard, every resource was dedicated to one purpose: revenge. Not the mindless kind, but the focused fury of a species that had lost its heroes. A human general named Robert coordinated the effort. He'd lost his daughter in the battle. She'd been a pilot on the Defiance. He didn't cry. He didn't rage. He simply worked, channeling his grief into action. They died buying time for strangers, he told his staff. We're going to make sure their sacrifice meant something. We're going to end this war. The new fleet wasn't just larger. It was meaner. Human engineers had studied the battle data obsessively. They knew exactly how the Devourers fought now, exactly how they adapted, and they designed weapons specifically to counter them. The Council's preparation. The Council fleet regrouped and repaired. But something had changed in them. They'd watched humans die without hesitation. It had shaken their understanding of warfare, of duty, of courage. Petra trained her crew harder than ever before. The humans showed us what real commitment looks like. When they arrive, we're going to fight alongside them properly. No holding back. No playing it safe. Other Council ships adopted human tactics. Aggressive maneuvers. Risky strategies. They even painted their ships with symbols honoring the fallen human vessels. Talon visited each ship personally. The elderly council leader looked exhausted, aged by grief and responsibility. The humans lost everything in one battle, he told the crews. We can't let their deaths be meaningless. When the reinforcements arrive, we fight together, as equals, as brothers and sisters in arms. Earth fleet arrived 7 days after the first battle. The human reinforcement fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel. 500 ships, just as promised. But these weren't the blocky fortresses from before. They were sleeker, faster, covered in new armor that incorporated Council technology. But they still bristled with human weapons, improved railguns, more powerful missiles. And something new that made Council scientists nervous. Antimatter warheads, Maria explained to the Council leadership. We've never used them before. Too dangerous. But the Devourers need to be stopped, and we're done playing nice. Robert commanded the fleet from his flagship. The Vengeance. The name was appropriate. The strategy the Devourers had regrouped around a star system called Omega-9. They were constructing new ships. New weapons, preparing for a final assault on Council space. Robert's plan was simple and terrifying. We're not going to fight them. We're going to erase them. He explained to the combined Council human leadership. The Devourers need matter and energy to build. We're going to destroy everything in that system they could possibly use. Every asteroid, every moon, every piece of debris. We starve them, then we crush them. Vorin objected. That's dozens of planets and moons. The collateral damage would be immense. The system's uninhabited, Robert replied coldly. And if we don't stop them here, they'll consume systems with billions of people. Your choice. Talon approved the plan. The time for caution had passed. The final battle begins. The combined Fleet 500, human ships and 300 Council vessels, jumped into Omega-9 system in perfect coordination. They didn't wait to be attacked. They struck first. Human antimatter warheads targeted the largest asteroids, vaporizing them instantly. Council precision weapons destroyed Devourer construction facilities. The enemy scrambled to respond, but the assault was overwhelming. Tom and Lisa flew together again. They'd survived the first battle by pure luck when their damaged fighter had been blown clear of the combat zone. Now they were back, leading a squadron of new pilots. Remember what Commander James taught us, Tom said over the squadron channel. We're not here to survive. We're here to win. The Devourer's desperation. The machine race had never faced an enemy like this. Their adaptation algorithms couldn't keep up. Human weapons kept changing, different ammunition, different attack patterns, different strategies. The moment the Devourers adjusted to one tactic, humans switched to another, and the Council forces had learned from humanity. They fought with aggression now, taking risks, pressing advantages. The mechanical precision of the Devourers met the chaotic fury of organic determination. The enemy's central processor, a massive computer core hidden in a moon base, calculated their odds of victory. The numbers kept dropping. 60%, 40%, 20%. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Devourers felt something their programming had never anticipated, the possibility of total defeat. Turning point, the battle raged for 3 days. Ships on both sides were destroyed by the hundreds. But slowly, inevitably, the combined fleet gained the upper hand. Kara's ship crippled a Devourer carrier. Pitra's squadron destroyed a construction facility. Human railguns tore through enemy armor, while Council energy weapons overwhelmed their shields. Robert coordinated everything from the Vengeance. His tactics brutal but effective. He'd lost his daughter. He'd lost friends. He'd lost comrades. Every order he gave was for them, for their memory, for their sacrifice. On the 4th day, the Devourer fleet began a full retreat. But Robert didn't let them run. All ships pursue. We end this here. We end this now. The final strike, the Devourers fled toward the edge of the system. trying to reach faster than light speed. But the human fleet was faster now. They caught up quickly. The enemy's central processor made a final decision. If they couldn't escape, they would inflict maximum damage. Every Devourer ship turned simultaneously, weapons charging for a suicidal final assault. Robert saw it coming. They're going to self-destruct and try to take us with them. All ships, maximum range. Fire everything. The entire combined fleet unleashed a single devastating volley. 800 ships firing simultaneously. The space between the fleets filled with weapons missiles, energy beams, railgun slugs, antimatter warheads. The two walls of fire met in the middle, creating an explosion visible from light years away. Victory when the blast cleared. The Devourer fleet was gone. Completely destroyed. Not a single enemy ship remained functional. The combined fleet had lost another 100 ships, 60 human, 40 council. But they'd won. The Devourers, the species that had terrorized the galaxy for 10,000 years, were defeated. The aftermath. The fleet returned to council headquarters as heroes. But the humans didn't celebrate. They'd lost too many friends, too many loved ones. Victory felt hollow when purchased with so much blood. The council held a massive ceremony. Every species sent representatives. They built a monument listing the names of every human who died. 40,000 from the first battle, 25,000 from the second. Talon addressed the galaxy. We feared humanity because they were dangerous. We were right to fear them, but wrong about why. They're dangerous to anyone who threatens the innocent. They're dangerous to anyone who believes might makes right. They're dangerous because they will die before they let others suffer. Integration, the provisional membership ended. Humanity received full permanent status in the Galactic Council. They weren't junior members anymore. They were equals, respected and honored. Trade routes opened to Earth. Technology flowed both ways. Human music, art, and culture spread across the galaxy. Other species were fascinated by the humans' contradictions, violent yet compassionate, primitive yet innovative, chaotic yet heroic. But more than anything, they were inspired. The council species had grown cautious over millennia, avoiding risks, preserving their people above all else. Humans reminded them that some things were worth dying for. Earth's perspective. Robert stood at his daughter's grave. The ceremony was over. The victory was complete. But she was still gone. We won, he told her quietly. The Devourers are finished. The galaxy is safe. You did that. You and 40,000 others. A message came through his communicator. Another species had encountered raiders attacking their colony. They were requesting human assistance. Robert smiled sadly. His daughter would have volunteered immediately. So he would too. I'm on my way, he replied. A legacy. Months later, Maria gave a presentation to young humans, preparing for their first space assignments. She showed them footage from the battles, explained the technology, discussed the tactics. But she ended with something more important. The galaxy called us dangerous. They called us violent. They were afraid of us. And then we showed them what humanity really means. We showed them that our strength isn't in our weapons or our aggression. It's in our willingness to stand between the weak and the strong, between the innocent and the cruel. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us heroes. The new era of the Galactic Council was different now. More species volunteered for defense forces. More resources went to protecting colonies. The cautious, careful approach of the past gave way to something bolder. They called it the human way, facing danger directly, accepting risks to protect others, choosing courage over safety. Statues of the Defiance appeared on 100 worlds. Children learned about Commander James and the sacrifice at Helios. Songs were written in 47 languages about the species that chose to save strangers. Final scene. Years later, Talon sat in his office, now retired. A young human diplomat named Alex visited him, seeking advice about a new crisis. Before Alex left, Talon stopped him. "Can I ask you something? Why did you do it? That first battle, when we'd isolated you for 50 years, treated you like a threat, why did your people help us?" Alex smiled. "Because that's what humans do. Someone needed help. Nothing else mattered." Talon watched the young human leave, then looked out at the stars. 50 years ago, they'd feared humanity's power. They'd been terrified of human violence, human weapons, human unpredictability. They'd never imagined that humanity's true power wasn't their ability to destroy. That it was their refusal to let others die. Alone, the galaxy had feared humanity. Then humanity had saved them. And in doing so, humanity had taught them all what it truly meant to be heroic. The aliens had needed hope. They'd found it in the most unlikely place in the dangerous, violent, beautiful species from a small blue planet called Earth. The end asterisk